it's so cool because like, you know, you get started in the business and you don't know really what to expect in the avenue that it's going to take you down. Like, I feel like it goes so much deeper than just your initial thoughts of what Amway is. Any endeavor you go down, those same existing obstacles I feel like are going to be there no matter what, right? Like, you're going to have fear, you're going to have doubt, you're going to have things that you're just naturally going to be good at. And in this arena, it's like, because there's not a lot of emphasis around relationships, that's why a lot of people, you know, sometimes can struggle in those areas, because there's no intentionality behind that. But here, because there's everyone around you that are actively trying to be better, it forces you to want to follow suit. Right. And that's where the sense I feel like of, you know, like, you know, talking about products, talking about, you know, building a network, all those things kind of, you know, start to come together. So
yeah, you triggered something in my mind. So, you know, I look at this sign that says "We are Amway," and really we are, because if you think about Amway as a whole, you know, they're not really all up in your face. You know, the reason we didn't know about Amway is because there's not a lot of commercials. There's not a lot of billboards out there. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. You know, it's 100% good thing, because I feel like you as a person, when you get educated, it forces you to, you know, get out of your comfort zone, because what happens is, in order for you to be successful at something, you got to become it. Yeah. You know, it forces you to, you know, spend time reading, listening, studying about the products, about the business itself. And so I guess the message I'm trying to get across right here is, you know, Amway allows us to build this thing the way that we want to build it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, it's not like you're forced to go do whatever for the company. It's about you, you know? And so, yeah, we are Amway, but you build your business completely different than myself. You know, you're from a completely different, you know, area than I am. You know, you played a completely different sport and had a completely different upbringing, you know, and it's so we're still doing the same thing though, yeah. You know, so it brings all of us from different backgrounds, from different cultures, different walks of life, but we can all do this.
Yeah, and actually, I just wanted to add something to that, Brandon. That was beautiful, by the way.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, one of the things that tripped me up was the lack of predictability in building business. Mm-hmm. You know, because when I started my career, you know, I'd go to work and there'd be a set project I had to work on, there'd be a deadline, and all the expectations were laid out. You know, and then I had these skills that I got from college that I could then apply, or my past work experience that I could apply to that project and then get it done. And, you know, there was you know, compensation for it, a paycheck every other week, and it was all predictable. I knew what to expect, at least in the near future. Right. But when I started my entrepreneurial journey, it was, you know, it was really all up to me. You know, the business would move forward if I grew, if I changed, if I put in the action. Right. And so that was alien. But what helped me make that transition, honestly, was the environment. Just like engineering school prepared me to be an engineer, the environment, the mentorship, and the Amway platform prepared me to be an entrepreneur, which I never knew what it even meant to be an entrepreneur, frankly. But, you know, I like to say that because, you know, sometimes people ask me like, oh, how did you know you wanted to be in business? And I actually never thought I'd ever be in business. Yeah. It was just that I had people who I could shadow and then emulate to figure out what it took to be an entrepreneur and to grow.